Sai Ram, I offer my most humble pranams at the lotus feet of Bhagawan Sri Sathya Sai Baba, and I would like to thank Region 8 for having me here today. This opportunity gives me a chance to reflect on my own relationship with Baba, which is something that I think I take for granted a lot. And so this has given me really the opportunity to reflect and think about my relationship with Swami and to be so grateful that I am part of this organization and I am in his fold. So Sairam, thank you for having me.
Well, yeah, it's wonderful. You're very welcome. It's really quite exciting for us to have you with us today. And as a young adult rep, you are so involved in working with so many people and sharing Baba's teachings. We get to learn so much in these roles. And I was wondering, out of Swami's messages, what's really featured as most prominent in your life, and how would you be working to sort of implement them in your day-to-day life?
Sure. So I think one of the few teachings that I carry with me is you don't have to always oblige, but you can speak obligingly. I think in today's society, we have so many different demands that are made of us. And it's always, I think, difficult to be able to set boundaries in a respectful manner. And so something that I carry with me is it's important to set boundaries, but you can do so in a respectful manner. And so I think, being able to speak obligingly is something that I actively work to implement, and also to make sure that the people that I am talking to are not disrespected in the process. I think another teaching of Swamis that I hold very deeply is that the end of education is character. I really, really value my character. I value what people think of me, and I value how I project myself to the outside. And so I try to live by the values that Swami has imparted to us of truth and right conduct, love, peace, and nonviolence. And I think that throughout my life, the reason that I have what I have is because of the character that I have exhibited. And so that is also another thing that I think of Swami's teachings that I work to implement. So I try to participate in community service activities wherever I can, to help people whenever the opportunity arises, to listen, to love, to be compassionate, to be empathetic. So I think these are all things that Swami wants us to exemplify. And so for me, the end of education is character. Though school is very important in everything, I've always held my character in higher regard.
Yeah, that's actually really inspiring to see someone who is already living the teachings at a young age. It's fantastic. Now, speaking of a young age, you discovered Baba at the age of 7. Can you give us a sense of what that was like?
Yes. So, a little bit of background. I used to live in Georgia, and then my family moved to Connecticut. And we just so happened to move to a town, Shelton, Connecticut, actually, that had a Sai Center. And my mom found out through a family friend of ours that there was a Sai Center. So I went, and I instantly looked at Swami's picture and I was like, wow, here's someone who is relatable. It was instant acceptance for me because I saw somebody in the picture that looked like me, that looked human. I do practice Hinduism, but I think for me, this was the first time that I was seeing someone that didn't have an elephant head or 4 arms. And just being able to relate to him on a human level, I think was one of the first instances where I was, I instantly felt like I could accept him. And I went, and there was bhajans happening, and they gave me the mic, and I did not know about the format of bhajans. So I actually ended up singing a Carnatic kriti, which, for those of you who know, Carnatic is an ancient Indian form of music. And it doesn't have first speed and second speeds. So when people were speeding me up, I was genuinely confused. But I managed to get through the whole thing. And then after center, the center owner, Sunita Auntie and Ramesh Uncle, the Vadwani family, they gave me my first ever bhajan tapes, which were the Sundaram bhajan tapes. And I fell in love not only with Swami, I think also with bhajans as well. And I've never looked back since.
So it was very understandable that at that young age that you would get into SSE, and it's such a rich program for young people to learn from. What was your most memorable experience going through SSE?
I think for me, I should preface with saying that I didn't have the typical SSE experience. I was the only child in Shelton Center for a few years. And so, because of that, out of the goodness of people's hearts, they wanted to teach me SSE, but they were one-on-one lessons. And so I'm really fortunate to have a one-on-one setting in which I was allowed to ask all of my questions, to be curious about Swami's teachings, and to freely explore. I think not many people have that space, but I was given that space at Shelton Center, and I'm very, very grateful for that. And I think, of course, there's lessons on kindness, there's lessons on nonviolence, service. There were so many topics that I learned about in SSE, but I think one of the main teachings that stood out to me was anger and anger management. And I think for me, the lesson on anger, there were a couple of quotes that were read, and one of the quotes was that, when you display anger, you are like reduced to an animal. Man becomes an animal. And so that image, I think, really stood out to me, and it made me think about, when I'm angry, do I look like that? Do I exhibit things that I wouldn't otherwise exhibit? Does being angry, and the things that I do when I'm in anger, because it clouds your judgment, you only see red at that point, does that align with the values and the character that I want to exhibit? And I think when I came out of that lesson, I was like thinking to myself, yes, I don't want to be angry, and I want to figure out the triggers that make me angry and work on that so that I don't exhibit those animalistic tendencies. And so I think that is a memorable lesson that I took from SSE. And then apart from that, I think SSE just taught me to present more. We used to have a lot of plays and speeches and presentations. And so I became more comfortable, I think, with presenting and public speaking, something that even to this day is something I struggle with. So I think SSE has been an enriching experience. And every time I have to make a decision, I think those lessons pop up in my head. They help me to make the right decision for me at that time using my power of discrimination. And I really have to thank all of my gurus and everyone along the way who has helped me become the person that I am today through SSE.
Well, that's a very good answer, and you're doing very, very well. You mentioned that you had the freedom to ask lots of questions, which has been really healthy, because then we get into the sort of concept of unlearning a lot of things that and relearning really about life. And perhaps you could share with us what are the so-called unlearnings that you've undergone from looking at life in a completely different way, in looking at life that divinity is in everything. What was that like for you?
I think when you say divinity is in everything, right? When we think of the word divine, we associate it with good things. So where it becomes difficult is when bad things happen, or things that are not necessarily favorable to you. And I think the biggest unlearning that I have gone through in my life is to stop seeing the struggles and the quote unquote bad things that happen to me as life as bad things. Swami actually says that good and bad are created in our minds. There's no such thing as good and bad. There is only good. And actually, I have a direct quote here, which I'll read, which says, you are responsible for the good and the bad you think and experience. They are not products of the outside world. They are the reflection, reaction, and resound of your inner being. And I think for me, the biggest unlearning has been to see the bad things as bad, but rather to see them as good, to see them as learning lessons, to see them as, steps along the path where I can improve myself. I think one of those things was sort of my college trajectory. When I changed majors, I thought it was bad that I had changed my path. I thought that, I was doing something incorrect. But the truth of the matter is, I made the decision at that time because I knew I wouldn't be happy in the career path that I chose. And though I did have a little bit of a setback in terms of having to take new courses and reorient myself in college, ultimately that decision was good for me. It taught me a lot about myself, it taught me a lot about decision making, and it taught me a lot about how sometimes things that may seem as like a setback in the short term could actually be a gain in the long term. And so I think the biggest unlearning for me is to not see the duality of good and bad, but to see everything as good and everything as divine, like you were saying before.
Yes, yeah, it's that idea of saying, this is good for me, this is good for me, and we just get through and work on our egos. Now, you've had some quite spectacular, by most of our standards, some spectacular experiences with Baba in Puttapati. Would you share some of those with us?
Yeah, absolutely. So I had the privilege of being part of two pilgrimages in 2007 and 2009 as part of the Northeast region. So a few of us went together and we prepared a musical program for Swami of unison English bhajans and English songs composed by people within the region. And I was probably 13 or 14 at the time of the 2007 trip. And in the 2007 trip, we had practiced for months and weeks for this musical program. We were in Parthi, and Swami often says, "Love my uncertainty," but I think I truly understood what he meant because we were sitting in darshan for a few days, and it didn't look like he was going to call us. And then suddenly, the Sevadal motioned to us. Everybody on the women's side gets up, and we go and we sit in the formation that we were told to sit in to perform for him. And I was excited. I was overwhelmed. I was, you know, I was a kid, and this was something that I know that is a big privilege to be able to perform in front of Swami in Kulwant Hall. And I had all this excitement, but where I was placed was very interesting. I had the opportunity to sit right behind the pillar, so I wasn't able to see anything the entire program. And as you can imagine, as a kid who was very excited to do all of this, I suddenly went from excited to probably what I was mentioning about earlier, anger, that all this hard work and all these weeks and months of practice like seemed to be for nothing. I couldn't see Swami's reaction to anything that we were singing. I honestly, to this day, don't even know what I sang into the mic. I just remember being very, very distraught. I was like, I thought, he must not even know I'm here. I'm singing. I don't even know if he can hear me. All these thoughts in my head. And in between songs, people who could see him would tell me, oh, Swami was laughing and he was smiling and he was singing along and, he's really enjoying the program. And for me, I was just upset because I wanted to see those reactions for myself. I wanted to, I wanted to experience that Swami reacting. Little did I know that that opportunity would come to me sooner than I thought. So the program ends and someone tells me Swami's gone back into the interview room. And I thought, okay, that's it. He comes out and I remember prior to the program, Soundria Auntie, who was one of the organizers of the program, she told me, no matter what happens, in case Swami asks us to sing bhajans, I need you to be my right-hand man. So wherever you're sitting, just come and sit next to me at that point. So I was trying to tell the Sevadal this in anticipation. I thought, okay, if Swami's coming back out, maybe we have to do bhajans. So I was trying to tell the Sevadal that I would like to move so that I could sit next to Soundria Auntie, who was a few feet away from me. The Sevadal thought I was being disobedient, and so she didn't allow me to move. And so I fought, and I basically somehow just got there. And I didn't realize that at that time, Swami came out of the interview room with a couple of students, and they were holding a bunch of red boxes. And then that's when one of the students, I think, had said that, oh, Swami wants to give all of you gifts, and so please accept. And then, there was like a moment where I think no one knew what to do next. And then suddenly I felt a hand push me, and I was the first person to go up. And so I went up to Swami, and he's opening the red box and he's taking out the chain and he's inspecting it. like he doesn't know what is inside. And then he hands me the chain, and I ask him, do you want to put it on or should I put it on myself? I didn't know what the protocol was. I was just a child. And he said, no, you put it. And then, I was about to turn away, and then I remembered, I should ask for Bad Namaskar. So I asked Swami, can I take Bad Namaskar, Swami? He said, oh, you can take. And so I took Bad Namaskar, and I still remember the feeling of Swami's feet. It was so soft, like rose petals. And after I received Pad Namaskar, soon people lined up behind me, and everybody got to take Pad Namaskar, and everybody got saris and chains and watches. And after that was done, the distribution was done. Soundriya auntie had asked Swami, bhajan padlama in Tamil, which means, can we sing bhajans for you, Swami? And Swami replied in Tamil, oh, padlame, which means, sure, you can sing. And now I was able to sing bhajans in front of Swami with a clear, unobstructed view. And it was a beautiful experience. I think it was his way of saying, I see you, and I know bhajans are your favorite, so I'm going to have you sing that in front of me. And I think that's one of the most memorable experiences of Swami that I have.
Sai Ram, that's incredible. What a magical and fantastic story. And to start off being behind the pillar and not being able to see him, which incidentally has happened to me. But then it makes you look inside yourself, and it can be really quite intense. But how then it changed, and you were up at the front, and then to get a necklace from Baba. And that leads us to this next question, about you've received many gifts from God. What do you think is the biggest gift that God has given you?
At the risk of sounding cliche, I will say that it is my voice. I love singing. I have sung since I can remember. And I think Swami giving me the voice that I have today has been so instrumental in my being able to communicate with him. For me, the highest form of devotion that I can show to Swami is through bhajans, and that's how I converse with him. And so I honestly have to say that it is my voice. And I don't know if it's okay, but I would like to actually sing a few lines of one of my favorite bhajans, if that's okay.
Yes, let's share that gift with everyone. Why not?
Sure. Before I go into the bhajan, I just want to briefly read the meaning out, which is, O Sai Bhagawan, you are love and bliss personified, the repository of compassion and kindness and hope of the downtrodden. Kindly accept us at your lotus feet. This bhajan is called Anandamaya Bhagawan, He Premamaya Bhagawan, and I'm sure some of you are familiar with it. So please, if you know it, you can sing along. Anandamaya Bhagavan, He Premamaya Bhagavan, O Bhagavan, Sai Bhagavan, O Bhagavan, Sai Bhagavan, Anandamaya Bhagavan, He Premamaya Bhagavan, He Karunanidhe Prabhu Sai Ram, Kripanidhe Dino ke pran, Ao Prabhu mujhe शरण लगा लो, दया करो भगवान, मुझे कृपा करो भगवान, आनंदमया भगवान, हे प्रेममया भगवान.
That's lovely. It was very nice.
Yeah, that bhajan is particularly special to me because I think the meaning is so beautiful. It talks about surrender, which I think in practice is really hard to do sometimes, especially in the society that we live in, where we think we have so much in our control and so much is our doing, but really he is the doer. And it just reminds me of this interview that I read between a devotee and Swami, where the devotee asks Swami, Swami, what is Sharanagati, which is what is surrender? And Swami says, why don't you tell me what you think it means? And so the devotee says, it's offering everything to you, Swami, offering everything. And I'll read this direct quote because I still think it's so beautiful. God does not want anything from you at any time in any point in time. If you remind yourself that whatever is happening is good for me, then you have surrendered to me. And I just think that that's just so beautiful that you don't have to think, oh, I'm offering this to you, I'm offering this to you. Just say, whatever is happening to you is good for you. And that itself is a form of surrender, is, I think, a beautiful, beautiful message.
Yes, it is. And that leads us to a question about responsibility. How do you feel about the responsibility of sort of sharing Baba's teachings?
I think that the best way that we can share Swami's teachings is to live it. Swami says, my life is my message, which then he later on changed to your life is my message, right? And I think that sums up what he wants us to do and how his teachings will spread automatically. If we all exhibit the character that he wants us to exhibit, and if we follow his teachings, and when I say follow his teachings, I think it's important that first we understand his teachings. We understand the context in which they were given. We understand the purpose for what they were given for. And we take time to understand those teachings. When we understand and internalize it, and then we live it, it'll become a seamless process. There's no need to think about it. It becomes intuitive. It becomes, automatic. And I think that's how we spread Swami's teachings. We don't have to point to the picture and say, this is Swami, here are his teachings. We can be those teachings and people will automatically be following Swami's teachings.
Sorry, Ram, yeah. Now, just to expand a little bit on that, if you met someone for the first time that didn't know Baba at all, what would you tell them about Baba if you had that opportunity?
I think I would say that, there are many great people in this world, and there are many good people in this world. But Swami is good and great. And the reason he is if you take aside, the fact that he is God, if you just look at him as a human being and what he's done in his human form, he had an 8th grade education, and yet his charisma, his character, he was able to inspire so many people to contribute to projects such as bringing water to millions of people in Chennai, or opening up a school for women's education that was really progressive at the time, because at least where the parts of India that he lived in, that wasn't necessarily expected of women to educate themselves to a higher level. So he really believed in that. And also free healthcare. The super specialty hospital, I think, is an amazing example of what someone can do in a short amount of time that impacts hundreds and thousands of people. And so if I want to convince someone to look at Swami and say, wow, he's a great person, he's a good person, I would just point them to the projects that he's done and maybe even tell them to visit Puttaparthi, because I think Puttaparthi is a great place to kind of get that spiritual recharge, see what Swami is all about, experience Swami. And so I think for me, that's what stands out to me about Swami, and that's what I would convince people to focus on, is look at all the projects he's inspired and look at all the values he exemplifies in his teachings. And, you don't have to believe that he is God, but you can definitely believe that he's a good person.
Yes, I think that's beautiful. You summed it up beautifully. So we're going to come to our last question. a very personal spiritual question about loving God and what it means for you.
That's a great question. I think Swami often says that you and I are one. So if I am to love God, I must first start by loving myself. And I think I am still in the process of doing this. This is probably something that I will continue to learn how to do over the course of the next few years, maybe even decades. But I truly think that in order to love God, you have to start with loving who you are, accepting who you are, and then also be willing to change the things that you want to change for the better. And once you're able to do that and you don't see any difference between you and Swami, you start becoming Swami. You start thinking we're not separate entities, we are the same. I think that's when you truly start to love God. And I think for me, the most prominent form of myself or being able to love God is through singing bhajans. So for me, that's probably where I will start with.
Perfect. Now, I know you've got a very special bhajan that you're going to do for us.
Yes, I do. This is a bhajan that I think a lot of people would be familiar with. Swami has sung it in his discourses a lot. And I think it accurately depicts what Swami is about, what the organization is about, and what values he wants us to practice. The bhajan is in Hindi. So the bhajan is Hari bhajan bina sukha shanti nahi. And the meaning, which I will read out loud for everyone, it just means that, O mind, there is no peace without chanting the glory of the Lord, Hari, which itself is bliss. There is no progress without loving devotion to the Lord, and there is no liberation without service to the feet of the Guru. There is no equanimity of mind without remembering the Lord's name and meditation. There is no integrated awareness without the Lord's vision. Performing good deeds constitute righteousness and compassion. Understand that everything belongs to God and that supreme consciousness is attained by chanting the Lord's name.
Saram, that's beautiful. I think that would be something we should all listen to.
Yes. Hari bhajan bina sukha shanti nahi. Hari bhajan bina sukha shanti nahi. Hari naam bina anand nahi. Hari naam bina anand nahi. Prema bhakti bina udar nahi. Prema bhakti bina udar nahi. Guru seva bina nirvana nahi. Guru seva bina nirvana nahi. Sai bhajan bina sukha shanti nahi. Jap dhyan bina sam yoga nahi. Jap dhyan bina sam yoga nahi. Prabhu darsh bina pragyan nahi. Prabhu darsh bina pragyan nahi. Daya dharma bina satkarma nahi. Daya dharma bina satkarma nahi. Bhagawan bina koi apna nahi. Bhagawan bina koi apna nahi. Sainath bina paramatma nahi. Sainath bina paramatma nahi. Sai भजन बिना सुख शांति नहीं, सुख शांति नहीं, सुख शांति नहीं.
Sarah, that was lovely. Thank you. That was really good. Now, what I know about you is that you also are a fan of Shiva bhajans, and recently at Shivaratri, you had a little bit of a Baba experience there as well.
Yes, so this was back in the time of in-person bhajans, but often during Shivaratri they will have Swami Darshan videos playing during the open bhajan session. So I happened to receive the mic during the open bhajan session, and I just sang the first bhajan that came to mind, which happens to be Mahadeva Maheshwara Sai Narayana. And it's more of a Sarvadharma bhajan actually. And it's a 6-beat bhajan. So it's hard, I think, to find videos where Swami's keeping beat to 6-beat bhajans. But as I was singing this bhajan, I felt, one, that Swami was making direct eye contact with me and that he was putting perfect talam, perfect beat for this bhajan. And I knew it was real in that moment because other people had also noticed that it was perfectly on beat. And I remember just singing and making eye contact and singing directly to him. And it was a beautiful experience. And I think what made it so beautiful is that this happened after Swami left his physical form. And so often at times we wonder, where is Swami, and is he really here, and is he really with me? And this was a small reassurance that I got, that he is, when he says, wherever my glory is sung, I install myself there. This is definitely one of those moments where he proved it to me. And so I would like to share that bhajan if
yeah, I think with an experience like that, we have to hear the bhajan. I think that's really important.
Yes, one second. I'll also just go ahead and read the meaning of this also for everyone so that they can understand. So the meaning is: glory to Lord Sai, the Lord of all worlds, the epitome of compassion, the destroyer of sin, the skillful dancer, and the Lord of the Lords. He is verily Lord Shiva, Narayana, Allah, Mahavir, and Yesu. He is the indweller, and he is the Lord of Bharti. Mahadeva Maheshwara Sai Narayana. Mahadeva Maheshwara Sai Narayana. Natana Ghara Dukhabanjana Sai Narayana. Natana Ghara Dukhabanjana Sai Narayana. Karuna Kara Akhileshwara Sai Narayana. Karuna Kara Akhileshwara Sai Narayana. Allah ho tum Mahavir Yeshu Sai Narayana. Allah ho tum Mahavir Yeshu Sai Narayana. Hridayeshwara Partishwara Sai Narayana. Hridayeshwara Partishwara Sai Narayana. Mahadeva Sai Narayana.
Such a beautiful melody, absolutely magnificent, how we connect to divinity through music. So for wrapping up our program, what would your final thoughts be on Baba's message to young adults and Baba's message to all of us?
Um, Actually, there is a quote from Swami which I would like to read that he gave to a discourse to the youth. And it says, I want you to be leaders to protect the world, leaders like lions, self reliant, courageous, majestic, and just. Lion is the king of animals, and I want you to be king among men. And I think, throughout my life, I have been given leadership opportunities and given the privilege of being able to lead people, whether it is in the Sai community, whether it is in the workplace. And I think that when we're given these opportunities, we should not say no. We should take them because that's our chance to change the world for the better. That's our chance to serve. That's our chance to pioneer. And, I'm very fortunate to be a part of Region 1 where we have pioneered a lot of content in terms of having retreats on mental health, gender equality, producing a short film on stories of transformation, producing a shadow play. I've been part of so many projects in the last few years and have been able to spearhead them as rep. And I'm really, really grateful for the opportunity. I'm grateful that Swami has put me in this position, and I hope to continue to serve him as a leader. And I encourage all the youth and everyone that when an opportunity arises, say yes.
Sai Ram, yes. We have said yes. That is it. Well, that is absolutely wonderful. I'd like to thank Akshaya Ravi Shankar, the Region 1 Young Adult Rep, for showing us what it's like when young people incorporate the teachings of truth, right action, peace, nonviolence, and love. As I mentioned before, this is a shining example of the teachings of Sri Sathya Sai. I pray that we can all be as thoughtful when it comes to loving God and being his perfect example.